Great.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. I'm really excited you could join me. I'm sure
Thank
that you're
you.
getting a lot of this as well at the moment. People going like, I can't stop eating. I can't stop reaching for the
Sure.
fridge. I'm like eating all my snacks. And I think that we can all relate. We can all relate to this. And I think
Yeah.
most people really go for food to deal with emotional stress. It's
Mm.
extremely common behavior. So I just wanted to talk a bit first about the emotional stuff behind emotional eating, and what drives this, because it's great to know what you should be doing, and everybody knows what you should be doing or what you shouldn't be doing, but it's understanding the deeper emotional drives. So before I go into that, next, have you had like a lot of people speaking to you about this in the last few days since lockdown has started?
Not really, funnily enough. But what I'm picking up is that if people are emotional eaters anyway, any kind of compounded stress is just going to trigger our normal go-to behavior. And because we're feeling so vulnerable and so out of control, and that our routine isn't in place, it's going to bring up those behaviors that would otherwise come up anyway under any stressful situation. But there are a couple of ironies
Absolutely.
as well. Yeah. So the
Being.
ironies that I've picked up is normally in the practice, people always say to me, I don't have time to eat well because I don't have time to prep and prepare and plan. And we've now got all the time in the world. But here's the problem. We don't have the routine that we normally have when we're going to school and packing lunches and going to the office. And I think that is probably what's derailing people more than normal is you don't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and show up at the office at 8 and you've got your set times. So setting a timetable up of very strict eating hours, when you're going to put that computer down, when you're going to sit down at the table as a family and eat a proper meal, will go a long way to curbing random eating and give you a sense of some control in your life.
And I think that is it. The whole thing around shifting your behavior around emotional eating is being consciously aware of why you're doing what you are doing. So, eating is a habit. Eating is completely unconscious and mindless. We just kind of go through it. And this
Yeah.
is why people end up, just doing that whole chocolate cake and suddenly look down and go, oh, where did the chocolate cake go? Because you're not actually consciously engaging in the process. You're just mindlessly doing it. So there's a few things that really do drive emotional eating. So I think stress, everybody knows that. And specific stresses, relationship stress is a big one right now in lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Financial stress is a huge one for everybody. I think everybody's feeling the financial strain of having lost jobs and not having income at the moment. So that creates stress. I know most parents are having a lot of parenting stress during this process. And work stress, what is going to happen? I think there's just the fear-based stress of what's going on. So stress is a big one.
Mm.
Uh, Exhaustion is another one. When you're really tired, you're going to reach for the quick fix of the chocolate
Yeah.
bar. And although I feel like a lot of people really are getting rest at the moment. So I don't know that that's playing as much of a role. But I think a big thing driving emotional eating during lockdown is boredom. I
Yeah.
think people are just sitting with oodles of time and they're not
Yeah.
filling their time productively. So let me just take another lap around the kitchen and see what else I can do because I'm completely
Sure.
bored.
Sure.
And I'm sure you see that a lot in your practice working with people is that eating is they're bored. And this is why
Yeah.
people give up on eating plans because it gets boring.
Yes. So we've got to find time or ways to fill our time with other things. And one way of doing that is getting an accountability partner, is someone who is watchdogging you and who is, even if it's your kids and you tell your kids to not let you do that, they are the best policemen out there and
Yeah.
they will remind you not to go and raid the fridge. Um, you know, it's also really easy to give in to children right now and put them on the TV with a bag of popcorn because you just need 5 minutes to yourself. But we're spiraling into a place where we're only going to feel worse about ourselves. And, this is going to just take a reframe. We are not alone. This is the whole world. And it's an opportunity to do things differently. We have time. It's a luxury that we otherwise wouldn't have had. There's no point stressing over what we can't control, but there are certain things we can control. And that is tidying up your cupboards and doing some planks and some squats if you need to. So getting your mind out of the doldrums, I think it's important to let your mind go there, but say,
Yeah.
fine, I'm going to be miserable for half an hour and then I want to kick my own ass. And if I can't kick my own butt, I'm going to find someone who can kick it for me. So
And I
we've got
think
to
it's
take
especially important.
ourselves. Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
especially important for people who are living by themselves. You know, I think when, like, it's great to have an accountability partner when you're living with someone, but for those of you who are living on your own, I just want to work through a little bit of how to tell the difference between when you are emotionally eating. So in other words, what is emotional hunger versus physical hunger? Because there's a big difference. And if you can really start to identify that, it's a huge, massive conscious step to not collapsing into the emotional eating. So emotional hunger is something that just comes on really suddenly, whereas physical hunger is something that's gradual and it starts to rise slowly. Emotional hunger is where it has to be satisfied right now. Like if I don't have that chocolate immediately, it's just terrible. Whereas physical hunger is you can wait. It's if I can only eat in 5 minutes, that's also okay. Emotional hunger is always around specific foods. So emotional eating is always around the comfort foods like the pasta or the ice cream or the sweets or the crisps. Whereas physical hunger, you actually open to a lot more options. It's not a particular food that you have to go for. So emotional eating is very specific foods that you go for. Emotional eating, you're never going to be satisfied. So you're just going to eat and eat and eat and eat and never feel full. Whereas physical hunger, you will eat, and then when you're full, you're going to stop eating. And the last thing to look for is that emotional eating is always going to trigger feelings of guilt and shame when you have finished eating. Whereas normal eating is never going to leave you with negative feelings about the food that you've just eaten.
No.
So Nikki, I know when you work with people around eating plans, this comes up a lot for you. You know, like how do you have a workable eating plan but not have the guilt or shame or not get bored, you know, or not have to, you know, so talk a little about that for us.
So the rule is, in my opinion, cravings come from something. So either you're tired and your body's looking for energy, you're miserable, so your body's looking for endorphins, or you're not getting enough nutrients. So if you're not getting enough nutrients, your body's going to go on a hunt for something and it doesn't know where to find it. It's going to go for the most calorie dense foods you can find, because if you were stranded on a mountaintop, that's what your brain would be looking for, the thing that could keep you going the longest. And basically we are feeling stranded right now. Your brain doesn't know the difference between being stuck in your house and the fact is you actually can go shopping and buy food almost every day if you really want to. But we've got this feeling of being trapped and stuck and not having any choices. So from an NLP point of view, the best technique is a pattern interrupt. When you want to go for that chocolate, first, you don't buy the chocolate. Okay, I understand it's really hard when you've got kids and spouses and everyone else wanting the junk food and eating it around you, which doesn't help either. It's like they are seriously curtailing your efforts. But first, if you can control the environment, don't buy that thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, you know, that's like, if it's not there, you can't eat it. So, but you can make all sorts of delicious things as well and put that energy into making cottage pie and oxtail and roast chicken and comfort foods that actually hit the spot. But the reason we want sugar is because we're looking for endorphins. We're looking for something that gives our brain a reward and tells the brain it's going to be fine, even if it's just for 5 minutes. The irony is 5 minutes later, we feel terrible because it works like any other.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, sugar does hit those same brain centers. It's like a drug, you know, sugar hits that same brain center as heroin, as cheese, you know,
Exactly.
it's highly addictive. So it's a hit. And that's what you got to think of. You're actually giving your kids drugs. You're giving them a hit.
Yes.
And they're going to,
Yes.
every parent knows the kid's going to have that crash. And just before you carry on, I want to just stop you there, because another thing that really drives emotional eating is childhood habitual behavior, learning that food is a reward. And a lot of parents do this for their kids. A lot of parents, you know, they soothe their children with sweets. If you've done something well, come, I'm going to take you for an ice cream, or I'm going to give you a chocolate because you behave so well. So we've got to look at our own habits from childhood around food as comfort. But be careful you are not doing this in lockdown with your children, that if you can see they're having a bad day, or they're missing their friends, or they're feeling stressed, oh, just a chocolate will make you feel better, so I'll make sure. And there's no excuse to buy crap when you're going, but when you're doing shopping for lockdown, do not put that crap in the trolley. There's no need to have it in the house.
Yeah, what I used to do is I used to put all the crap in the trolley and I used to walk it around the shop, but I wouldn't leave the shop with it. So I'd have to offload it, but I'd take it for a drive in my trolley just to feel better. But I was nowhere on earth that I'd let myself leave the store with it. And on some ironic level, it kind of worked for me. So I felt very like justified and self-righteous that I'd managed to put everything back. But when it comes to children, you know, doing something with them is going to be far better, a better tool to create endorphins for them and for you. And I know it's tough doing drawings as an adult 3 times a day when you've got other stuff on your mind, but it's actually really good for you to do some dawdles and sit with your kids and color in or do a puzzle. It's good for your own stress chemistry in your brain. It is a reprieve. It does do the same thing that the sugar does. It really does create those endorphins because you're creating a connectivity, and connecting with a human being creates another endorphin called oxytocin, which is more powerful than serotonin for helping you calm down and relieve anxiety. You know, just giving your little one a rub or a tickle or playing with their hair creates endorphins or oxytocin for them and for you. And, you know, if you're feeling like you just need to go have a glass of wine, rather just get, you know, have a little bit of bonding time first, and your craving won't be as powerful. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying interrupt the automated response.
And that interruption is absolutely, when we're talking about conscious eating, this is what has to happen. You have to interrupt the action as it's happening. Recognize you're reaching for the fridge and just stop for 2 minutes. You're not saying no to yourself. What you're saying is, can I just wait 1 minute before I have the chocolate? And in that minute, I'm just going to consciously look at what's going on. I'm just going to check in with myself. How am I feeling? Like, what emotions are actually going on with me right now? Am I upset because I just had a fight with my husband? Am I feeling exhausted because there's like another load of laundry to do? Am I feeling completely overwhelmed because I don't know when my next client is coming? Now, if you can recognize what the trigger is, now you can choose an alternative replacement behavior. And this is also really important. You can't just stop the eating. You have to replace it with something else. So if you can recognize you're eating from stress, go and phone a friend. I know that a lot of coaches and therapists have moved their practices online and are still available for online bookings. So book a session with a therapist or coach to talk this stuff through. Go and have a conversation with your husband. You know, go and just seek to alleviate the stress in a more workable way than swallowing it down with another bite of food. If you are exhausted, ask your family for support and say, you know, I can't do another load of dishes. That's on you guys. I'm going to go and lie down for an hour. Make sure that you're getting the support that you need, and that you're not looking at that from food. And stress can also be hugely physical. I think people are really, pushing this point so much during lockdown is physical activity, and not just for fitness, but to relieve stress levels. And you're right, the minute you can engage alternative behavior, your craving levels drop quite significantly, and then chances are you're not going to reach for the chocolate.
And yeah, these cravings are all a mind game. None of us are going to starve to death, you know, in as well. Let's just say the context of the group we're talking to here, not people who actually have no money and can't go shopping, but for the majority of people who are fortunate enough to be able to just pop down the road, you're not going to starve. So that craving is completely in your mind, and it's a natural response to an abnormal situation. You're not crazy. This is a normal human reflex. But to understand that is halfway to getting it fixed, and pausing and finding another way. I love what you said about, if I need to go lie down, lie down. A lot of us can sort through our angst just by being alone, just for 10 minutes in a quiet space. And if it takes journaling, just write it down, write down what you're thinking. And that is often enough just to pause and get through, to tell you, to calm your brain down and tell yourself that it's going to be fine. But I also really, really believe that having your structured meal times with really delicious food, and you can get everybody involved in the making and the prep and the cleaning up, then you know you're eating. You know, you're eating 3 solid meals a day, maybe a snack in between, and then in your own brain, you know there's no excuse to go and binge on something that you're going to regret later. We're going to regret it.
Completely. And that planning really ties into the predictability which we're trying to put into our homes at the moment, because it's what makes us feel safe. If we have a predictable day and we know what is coming, especially for children, it creates that level of safety. So I want to kind of really get into some of the questions that people have been sending me, and I'm going to work through them. And guys, you know, this is live, so as questions are coming up for you, please post them. But we've got quite a few, so I'm going to go through them. So I know that fresh food is hard because it goes off very quickly. So what food should you be focusing on buying in terms of dried or tinned or frozen that's nutritious, that's good for your immunity, and that can last for a long time, so people don't have to get to the shops?
Okay, so a lot of us underestimate the importance of frozen vegetables. Frozen vegetables are very healthy. They're very good for you. The only nutrient that depletes with frozen vegetables is folate because it doesn't survive the cold. That said, a lot of the other minerals, vitamins, and polyphenols in frozen vegetables will last a hell of a long time. So if you can still get frozen vegetables, you could stock up on those, make them into soups, make them into stews, cottage pies, etc. You don't have to eat raw all the time. That's another fallacy. You really don't have to eat raw vegetables. So when you do go shopping, get a small amount of raw veg, and you can even put those into juices and smoothies if you want to consume them raw. You can freeze those. There's so many creative ways of preserving even fresh fruit and vegetables. Your pulses, legumes, your beans, chickpeas, lentils are minefields of great nutrition. There is so much benefit and fiber. Red beans are full of polyphenols. They're really, really good for you, and they can last years dried out on a shelf. They also taste better when you reconstitute them yourself by soaking them overnight. Don't forget nuts and seeds, whether you grind them up or have them whole. Those are wonderful sources of selenium, your B vitamins, all your fat soluble vitamins. And then I can't remember what I was going to say next, but yeah, it was the pulses, it was the frozen vegetables. But buy your fruits and vegetables. Don't buy a lot. Just buy a little bit that you can consume within 3 days. Make a plan to go shopping twice a week and go, say, on a Monday and a Friday, and buy just enough for those days so that everything stays fresh and doesn't get wasted. There's nothing more irritating than throwing out good food because you've bought too much.
And if you
So
do
yeah.
get, like, I know there's a lot of places that are doing home deliveries at the moment. Like, I've actually ordered from a place, but the problem is that, you get a box, it's 500 rand, you get this amazing box full of vegetables, but you're not going to eat it in a week. So the
Not.
trick, I think, is to prep it on the day you get it, and chop up stuff to put in the freezer. So break everything down, roast the stuff you need, do the
Yeah.
soups, or chop up veggies, and they all
Yes.
freeze and on the day that you get them, and then they last.
Exactly. There's an amazing book by, it's called Animal Vegetable Miracle, by Barbara Kinsolver. And she decided to spend a year on a farm with her family away from reality. So away from the shops and away from every modern convenience. And she explained how they bottled and preserved and cooked everything that they grew. And it's such an inspirational book because it makes you realize anyone can do that. So if you do happen to have tomatoes that are going soft, cook them, put them in a container, freeze them. They'll last you months. You'll have tomatoes going through until next summer. So just think a little bit out the box. It doesn't have to come in a cardboard container from the local grocery store for it to be food. We can actually process it ourselves. And the trick is, and I think a lot of people who do this will realize that the food they make at home tastes a whole lot better than what you buy at the shops, and you're going to start getting spoiled. So when you go back to restaurants and you go back to processed foods, you're going to go, ugh, I don't think I like the taste of it, because you'll start developing a taste for what food should taste like. And that's the
And grow
difference.
your own stuff. I mean, I know it's early to do it. I mean, it's not going to be, grown, but start the process of, it's really easy to grow your own stuff and have a vegetable garden at home. So this is
Absolutely.
really going to get people into thinking of other ways around food. So another big thing is people who, most people start new eating plan in January. So now
Yeah.
everybody got really strict with their eating for January and February, and now this has happened. So so two questions here. So the number one is, how do you maintain your eating plan if you are already on one? And number two, is this a good time to start a new eating plan?
Yes, it is. I think it's the perfect time to do things differently. You've got no other choice. What else are you going to do? So you may as well get creative and make a plan. Sit down and plan your shopping, plan your meal times, plan your cooking schedule. If there's any time, they say there's never a good time, and it's always a good time to get healthy. So I think with
Yeah.
all this time on our hands, it's the perfect opportunity to try something different. If you started a new plan in January, you should be in the rhythm, and everything's available. There's no reason not to do this. You
Yeah.
just got to keep the routine. What keeps the routine for most people is the fact that they have to pack their lunch and go to work and come back from work and make the dinner. They've got this rhythm. So you've got to find a way to get the rhythm back. It's not about the food. It's about the discipline and the rhythm of having set times. Because, I look at the watch, at random times during the day, and like, wow, it's 3 o'clock. Where did the day go? It's because we don't have our usual triggers in place. You've got to create those. And if you've got children, you've got to do that anyway. Otherwise, they're going to go crazy with boredom.
And you know, it's completely it's boredom. You know, I know that my daughter, I can pack a lunch for her in the morning. She can go to school, have a hectic day at school. I pick her up at 3 in the afternoon. She hasn't touched her lunch because she's been so busy. Versus being at home during lockdown, it's like needing to eat every hour because there's nothing else to do and people have high energy. So I agree with you. I think this is a really good time to start an eating plan. You absolutely can still go to the shops. There's no lockdown from shops here. You can still go and get all the groceries that you need to create a proper eating plan. Stop buying the rubbish. And if you've already been on an eating plan, you know, there's no reason that you can't continue with that. I think that most people are just finding that the stress is triggering that comfort eating.
Yeah, it's more in the mind.
Absolutely.
You know, in my mind, it's a case of, well, I'm going to use this time to shrink a jean size. I'm going to come out of this a jean size smaller. Turn it around, turn it on its head. You know, if you can come out of this situation a lot healthier, pain-free, and a jean size smaller, well, it's been a blessing. You know, we've all got to think of ways of turning this to our advantage. There are,
and I think that the thing around advantages is the control that we do have. I think everything right now feels out of control. We cannot control what's going on. We can't control when we can leave our houses for good. We can't control what's happening with work and finances. We can't really control how our people we're living with are behaving, but absolutely that is one thing we absolutely control.
Yeah, and you can also be an example. You can create your own support groups. You can find friends who are also battling and support each other. If you don't have an accountability partner in the home, you can create your own WhatsApp group where you can live chat like this and keep each other going. You can share recipes. You could write books. The choices are endless when you start getting creative. It's if we allow ourselves to go down that rabbit hole or not. And I think this is a great... This is such a spiritually profound time in human history. For me, it's like we are forced to live with those things that make us uncomfortable. And we spoke about this in a podcast not long ago, is how do you sit with those things that you avoid through work, through drinking, through drugs, through food. Now you have no choice. We have to sit with this because it's going to birth a different way of doing life. And we're seeing this, and it's scary, but it's amazing because we can't carry on like we've been carrying on. It hasn't worked.
No, and this is now an opportunity for you to really reframe and shift a lot of how you have been living your life versus what your future life post-lockdown is going to look like. So in terms of the lockdown situation, I think most people are really paying a lot of attention to boosting their immunity. So in terms of food or supplements, you know, but specifically food, what foods are primary to boost immunity through this time?
Okay. A range of foods. So a wide range of as much as variety as you can get hold of. So you'll find your nutrients in everything. But for example, you'll find lycopene in a tomato. You'll find folate in your dark green vegetables. I'm trying to think of some examples. You'll find selenium in nuts. So you can't say this is a superfood and this is the food you should be eating. We need to get as broad a variety as possible in, which may or may not be a challenge. And the fresher the better, which may or may not be a challenge. But where we have limitations, just try and get as broad a spectrum as possible. There's nothing wrong with frozen fish. There's nothing wrong with frozen meat if you're a meat eater. Typically, your most nutrient-dense foods are organ meats and shellfish. So if you're not vegetarian or vegan, those are your foods that are going to give you the most bang for your buck as far as nutrition is concerned. If you are vegetarian, eggs are perfect. Eggs are a superfood. You want to get your protein in because it helps your liver detox and it helps your immune system. If you're vegan, it's going to be quite complicated. You need to make sure that you're getting the beans and the nuts and the rice and the vegetables. And, you know, being vegan doesn't mean you have a license to go eat pasta. As you know, Oreos are vegan, but that's not nutrition. Now, what's really important here is foods will either create an inflammatory situation. So sugars and processed foods, flours will create inflammation, which will downregulate your immune system. Whole foods, real foods, will upregulate your immune system because they're anti-inflammatory. So it's not really altogether just about the vitamin and mineral content. It's about what creates inflammation in the body, making you vulnerable, and what creates, you know, a place where your immune system can flourish and do its job. Your immune
The number
system's
one
really,
thing that inflames your system,
sorry?
the number one thing that inflames your system is sugar.
Sugar and alcohol.
Sugar.
Alcohol is a great way to make your immune system down-regulated. The directorates that came out today, funny enough, by our own health department, was the reason why they're trying to get people to curb their drinking is not because they're going to make stupid choices. It's because it's so inflammatory and it down-regulates your immune system. It's not to curb your fun, to keep you alive.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed with the way the health system is going at this. Yeah, I didn't really think they had it in them to go hammer and tongs at this, but it's impressive. And it's not to stop you having a party. It's to stop you getting sick. You know, and that
And
goes
exactly,
across the
we've got
board.
to pay attention to that. We've got to pay attention to the cycle we're getting stuck in here. It's that we want to be healthy, and we want to have our food last long so we don't have to go to the shops. But our emotional eating nature makes us reach for the sugar, reach for the booze. We plow our way through our food supply. So then now it's, oh God, now I've got to get to the shops, which is this panicked buying. So it just drives this whole panicked cycle that doesn't stop. So really regulating your emotional state through meditation, through doing exercise, through being conscious with your friends and family, lowering your cortisol level.
Go watch a good Michael McIntyre skit or a Graham Norton, and you won't feel like that glass of wine. You know, you'll have a good laugh. It's really important to make sure that you have a good laugh every now and again, a couple of times a day. It does alleviate the stress triggers that make us go and make those bad choices. So yeah, variety.
Now, Nikki, are you doing consultations through Skype, Zoom?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I will put the link to your website so people can book a session with you. And you know, being the accountability person. If they really got no one else in their life, they've got you, so they can book a
I'm
session
available.
with you.
I'm available to be nice to you or kick your butt, whatever you like. You know, you just tell me which form, you know, you prefer and what kind of person. Do you like the carrot or do you want the stick? I can do both. And everything is online. You really, you know, that nothing is stopped. This carries on online. I consult with many people abroad all the time, even when we weren't going through this. So I've got a huge client base that I don't see face to face, well, it's face to face on Zoom. So nothing needs to change. And if you're finding that you're battling and you're needing the help, by all means, my website, you can hand off the website details, pop me an email, and we can start immediately.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming. I think you've given us incredible information today.
So
and
nice
guys,
to
please go
to.
Hey, yes.
So nice to see your face.
You too. It's horrible being all locked away. But thank God for technology that we can all stay connected and we can all join each other for these kind of videos and just keep sharing this information. And guys, just please keep holding yourselves and your family members, and even if they're not with you, accountable for how you are eating and how you're looking after your nutrition. So go and eat well and get in touch with Nikki if you want appointments. She's got amazing resources on her website. Follow her on Instagram. And she's got blogs and articles and videos and lots of supportive content. Exactly. So go get healthy, guys, and I will speak to you again tomorrow on Instagram Live.
Thank you.